Ruth chapter 3, verse 16. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Is that you, my daughter?" Then she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, "These 6 ephahs of barley he gave me. For he said to me, 'Do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law.'" Then she said, "Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. For the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day." Ruth's story began when she met a Jewish family in her Moabite suburb. She eventually married one of the boys and began a new life. As it turns out, this new life was not what she expected, as her father-in-law, her brother-in-law, and her husband all died within a few years of each other. Left to pick up the emotional pieces, it was too much for her to lose her mother-in-law as well, who had determined to return to Israel. Leaving with Naomi, her mother-in-law, meant leaving her gods behind and trusting in the God of Israel. It was close to the River Jordan when she made her final decision to cross over into the life with God, just as Israel had done some years before. Since then, God has been blessing her amazingly. He's been leading her to her place of work, providing abundantly for her and her mother-in-law, Naomi's needs. It even seems that there's been a bit of a budding romance. Ooh, 2 little lovers sitting in a tree. I wonder how that goes in Hebrew. Anyway, as Christians, you and I, we note that the Lord moves us along in His way, and it's joy for us. But that doesn't mean that there aren't surprises around the corner, that there aren't disappointing things that happen. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that come along that test our resolve and cause us even great concern. What do we do as Christians when there are bumps in the road? How do we handle perspective and actual disappointment? How are we to respond when our heart races to figure out the next steps? Some of you might know what this means personally. Having gone through very difficult things, having faced crises and wondering, where was God in the middle of all this? How did He work this out? How did He bring this to be? Well, that's what our chapter is about today. So hopefully, by the end of the chapter, we'll learn what it is that we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to respond to those type things. But let's take a look now. Chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now Boaz, whose young women you were with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Therefore wash yourself and anoint yourself, put on your best garment and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. And it shall be when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lay down. And he will tell you what you should do." And she said to her, "All that you say to me, I will do." Naomi is now beyond personal recovery, and she sees a chance for Ruth to have the security of a marriage relationship. Harvesting barley and wheat brought about a good amount of employment, seasonal work, but only a very few select and specialized laborers sustained year-round employment. This is why Naomi is insistent and persistent in seeking security. The word literally is rest for Ruth. Now, this would end up being Ruth's reason to rejoice and not just a momentary sigh of relief. He's looking for a lifelong commitment. She is desiring that for her. And she lays out her plan without any kind of subtlety. She goes, "Ruth, I don't know if you understand this, but Boaz is our kinsman redeemer. There's a certain right legally that you could come and say that you had." After the barley and wheat had been collected into barns, the men would go out and they would separate the barley seed from the inedible portions of the stalk. There are varying styles of threshing floors, from enclosed areas to large stone circles that bordered the valuable grain. The other variable, of course, was the wind, which separated the parts from each other. That's where Boaz was going to be all night. So it was the perfect time for Ruth to announce her intentions by preparing herself to go to the threshing floor. Now, Naomi instructs her in what sounds to us like a very funny thing. Hey, Ruth, go take a bath and put some perfume on. It sounds funny to us. Like, what woman needs to be told to get ready? And what woman needs to be told to get ready early so she can be at the threshing floor? For goodness sake. Certainly, everyone can do that very quickly. Yeah, she knew women. She knew. Really, what Naomi is signaling to her, she's letting her know it's time for you to take off your mourning clothes. It's time for you to take off the things that keep you from being approached by other men. This is going to signal your availability to Boaz, that it's time now. You've gotten over the fact that you and your husband have been parted by death, and now it is time for you to reveal yourself as one who's ready to be married. She was to go down and wait till the party was finished. She was find out where he was going to be seated, where he was going to sleep for the night, so that she could meander, make her way over there. When all was quiet, she was supposed to lay down at his feet, and she was to uncover his feet. A symbolic gesture that was saying, I submit myself unto you as the kinsman redeemer, and I hope for your protective covering to come over me. And when Boaz would be awakened, she was to await her redeemer's instructions, which he then promised Naomi that she would do. So verse 6, so she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. So the sight of this harvesting party was a jovial one as the reapers celebrated the measure of their haul. Boaz couldn't be more content. He had taken his evening meal, and his heart was full of joy. Every man knows what this is like. You've eaten enough, you feel awesome. There's virtually no better feeling than when you're full and satisfied. Your work is done for the day. And now he can just sit there and enjoy the success of the season. This harvest time was a very joyful time, a time when you could breathe in a sigh of relief and breathe out a heartfelt praise to the Lord. All around him, all that you could see were piles of grain that the reapers slept by. The reason they slept by them was a measure of security. Remember, they're living in the time of the judges, and nothing is safe. All kinds of marauding people groups were threats to remove the grain from these places. By the way, I really like Boaz. Notice how he's involved in all the steps. In chapter 2, we found him coming to greet the workers, coming out to the field, watching as people were doing things, taking part of what was happening. And here he is on a night when he can probably say, well, we've counted it up. You guys, it's good. You guys take care of things. I'm taking off. No, he took a sword himself and he laid down by a pile of grain. He decided, I'm not going to tell somebody else to do something that I myself won't be willing to do myself. That's the kind of leader I can get behind. Somebody that really does take the initiative and do, and not just command others to do for them. I like that about Boaz. There was real danger here, and he wasn't going to throw his workers into an environment that he himself wasn't willing to sit in. So as he lay down, and certainly this was a labor-intensive process. Don't believe for a minute that this had a bunch of machinery around like they do today. These are guys with, pitchforks throwing stuff up in the air. It's a very laborious work. And she came down, they're knocked out. So Ruth comes quietly, softly, not wanting to rouse the other reapers. And she brought the blanket down and laid it up under her, or over her rather. Verse 8, now it happened at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and there was a woman laying at his feet. And he said, who are you? So she answered, I'm Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. Now, Boaz is tired. I don't know, some of us guys, it would take, I don't even know what it would take for us to be awakened after a long, hard day of work. My wife has said on occasion, like sometimes she has to shove and push me to get me awake again when I'm in a dead sleep. So I wonder how long Boaz was laying there hope this guy gets it. I wonder if she was like tickling his feet, like laying a little feather across the bottom, like, come on, dude, waiting for this line. I wonder if her heart raced as she considered the possibilities of being Mrs. Boaz. She's trying on his last name. You know how girls do it. You know how girls do that. They say their name and then they use the last name at the end. So-and-so Sanchez, so-and-so Sanchez. Well, not just women who do that to me, but I mean, there's other people, other ladies do that way. She was wondering, oh man, this is going to be wonderful. I'm going to be Mrs. Boaz by the morning or by the next day. I'm sure she was also a little worried about how they might handle the misunderstanding. You know, that most women who were at a threshing floor at this time were prostitutes. So she probably didn't want to be viewed that way in that regard. But then there's the worst one. Remember, he's sitting there with a sword. Yeah, that's the scary one. That's the scary one. The kind of thing where, you know, shoot first, ask questions later, lop off a head and ask questions later. This was a scary time. So she, I'm sure, had all these things going on in her mind. There's a lot going on here. And a lot of it that might happen might not be good. But Boaz didn't notice her until something startled him. The word speaks of a trembling fear, justifying the thought that he was there as a measure of security. And when Boaz turned around, he knew someone was there and discovered Ruth's presence. And Ruth at this point, wanting simply to survive and avoid misunderstanding, just let the words right out. She might have had a whole flowery speech planned, but all she said was, place your hand over me or place me under your wing, for you are a redeemer. There's no doubt that Boaz knew of his relationship and the potential responsibility, but it wasn't his to assume. We're meant to understand that Ruth's query was to come first. She was to make this request to be taken under his wing. A word speaking of his skirt and metaphorically a protective wing of an eagle over her chicks. So verse 10, then he said, blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request, for all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. Boy, this could not have gone better. Not only has he not killed her, he's having a conversation with her. Ruth is asking Boaz to perform duties similar to that of a married man toward her. She's seeking his assistance, which will certainly be a costly endeavor. In our minds, we would likely push the pause button when a lady came to us and said, would you marry me and father children with me and take care of me? We'd push the pause button, call for security. You're insane. In this world, however, in this culture, this was something quite other. His response tells us that he was genuinely happy, genuinely surprised, and as a perfect gentleman blessed her in the Lord. There in the dark, his character shone brightly, that he didn't take advantage of the situation. He believes this action in her loyal choice to Naomi's family was as great as her choice to leave her nation behind. In our self-absorbed culture, we rarely consider the thought of our posterity. We rarely think about what it's going to be like to have children, or our children to have children, and what they're going to believe and how they're going to live. We don't think about those things, but Israel was not like that. And they lived under legal standards to avoid the loss of a family name. This is why the daughters of Zelophehad, anyone remember them? The daughters of Zelophehad could only marry within their own tribe. This is why levirate marriage, when a brother died, a brother was supposed to take care of the family name and raise up a son. That's why levirate marriage is in Scripture. And that's why even after 49 years, in the 50th year, land could be returned to the original family landowners in the year of Jubilee. It was very important. Posterity was an important thing. Ruth did not owe this to Naomi's family. And Boaz understands that. He said, yes, that was so kind of you to leave aside all those things in the past, all your life in Moabite country, whatever things might have come to you to come and seek this for your mother-in-law. But to do this even now is tremendous. This was extraordinarily kind of Ruth to seek this out. Because you see, Naomi wants it for Ruth. Naomi wants her to have security, but Ruth is thinking just as much about Naomi as herself. He wants her to have the security as well. And Boaz is just flattered. He doesn't even think he was a candidate. He's an older guy. Nobody was looking at him. The character that she showed that she wasn't some kind of gold digger. She wasn't out for his money. This was a woman of virtue. He had watched her through these seasons, and he'd seen that she was very upright in the way she acted. He says, you are a woman of profound, virtuous character. This same word is the female equivalent of man of valor. Now, all this sounds really good, but there's just this one thing. There's just this one little complication. Let me tell you about it. Verse 12. Now, it is true that I'm a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative to you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you as the Lord lives. Lie down until the morning. Wow. For those who have not spoiled themselves or read this book before, most everybody in here has. Those of you that have the unfortunate reality here, you've been looking forward. This is the climactic moment in the movie. They're finally going to join together. You've been watching the music video in the movie go, and you've seen them in the winnowing field, and there's Ruth, and they happen to pick up the same pitchfork, and here, you take it, no, you, and they're throwing it up in the air, and she's throwing it up on him, and he's throwing it on her, and they're having a barley fight out in the field. There's a wonderful music video playing in the background. And here she comes in, and there's just a little tiny bit of light, and you can sort of see her eyes in the darkness, and you hear the violins in the background. They're sweeping toward that climactic orchestral sound. You can see her eyes are so encouraged by the things that he's saying. Boaz opened up with some good stuff. He said, blessed are you, and I'll do this for you. And then there's the needle scratch. There's a relative closer than I. I wonder if at this moment Ruth says, what kind of reconnaissance does Naomi know about? Man, she doesn't know anything about this family. She didn't know about Elimelech, and she doesn't know about this older Redeemer. She just, what? This would have been an older brother to Boaz. As in the historical account of Judah's brothers, or rather his sons, in Genesis 38. Judah's son died and was to give a child, didn't. Onan stepped in. He didn't give a child. He died. Judah didn't want to give Shelah, his last son, over to this woman because, for goodness sake, everybody she marries dies. I don't know what she cooks, but it's not good. I don't know what's happening. Actually, both of them were fairly evil. So there's a progression. Older brother will take the response. So here's this budding romance. And imagine even for a moment, maybe Ruth this is just a business deal. Even if it's just a business deal in her mind. It's just a non-emotional, we're just going to do what needs to be done and have a son, and that's all. Even then, wouldn't this take getting used to? You've worked yourself up this whole time. All you've known is this guy Boaz. You're kind of used to him. He's old, but he's good looking and whatever. You've gotten used to the idea. And now there's another one. There's this budding romance and this deep mutual respect. And not to mention Naomi's desire for this to take place. So imagine your thoughts as Boaz says, if he'll perform the duty for you, then good. I could hear Ruth go, good? What's good about that, bozo? What's wrong with you? I mean, Boaz, what's wrong with you? Here she is, and she hears this. She lays down till daybreak. Boaz not wanting Ruth to travel in the middle of the night. I believe Ruth laid there in the dark, her eyes open, and her heart just wondering, Lord, did I do the right thing? What happened here? And what's this other guy like? Did he have the same values that Boaz had? Was he in a similar economic situation? And how am I going to explain this to Naomi? I thought that God brought us together. This must have been a very fitful time. Verse 14, so she lay at his feet until morning, and she arose before one could recognize another. Then he said, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And he said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And then he held it. He measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her. And she went into the city. She laid there until the early morning, didn't sleep, simply lay there, probably 3:30, 4 in the morning. A person at that time walking around is just a silhouette. You can't really tell. You can't discern whether it's a man or a woman that's traveling around or near you. He wanted her to leave as early as possible so she wouldn't be discovered. He is protecting her reputation. Before she left, she made sure that she left, with 6 handfuls, an ephah is an assertion by the translators. And if it were 6 ephahs of barley, as we talked last week, this would have been way too heavy for her to carry. But it's some kind of gesture. It's some 6 handfuls worth of barley for her to take home. She extends her garment and she makes her way home in the dark. And you can just imagine that walk home, that heavy burden that's on her now that the things have changed and there's something that didn't quite add up. Just a chapter ago, she'd gone unexpectedly into this farm, into this field that was owned by this guy. He just happened in, and here he is, this guy Boaz walks in. Now she just happened to be there, right? And with no expectations, what a joyful thing it was to receive all that she had received. And here she is. Now she has way more than she had, but she came in with all these expectations. She came here tonight thinking, this is it. We're going to culminate this thing. We're going to be man and wife. There's all these expectations. And now she goes home with more grain than she would have imagined. And it's just an empty victory. It's just an empty thing that's in her hand. And it's a burden to carry physically and emotionally. When she came to her mother-in-law, verse 16, she said, "Is that you, my daughter?" And she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, "These 6 ephahs of barley he gave me. He said to me, 'Do not go away empty-handed to your mother-in-law.'" And Naomi wonders at Ruth. She looks at her in the same way that Bethlehem wondered about Naomi when she came in. "Is that you, Naomi?" Now, Naomi says that to Ruth. "Is that you, Ruth, my daughter?" You wonder what Ruth's countenance looked like. It's very rare that I've ever found a person who's able to hide disappointment, who's able to hide when they are crushed, when the expectations haven't been met. And even in the dark, as Ruth walks up to the door and she comes in, Naomi can see it didn't go the way she thought. It didn't go like they planned. This was not the greeting she expected to give. Ruth conveyed the story, I'm certain, with some level of shock and disbelief. "Did you know there was another one? Did you know that? I don't know if I'm going to like this dude. I mean, if Boaz is already old, this guy's got to be really old." She lays out what Boaz had given her. It's both a concession, but it's also a signal to Naomi. But it meant nothing to Ruth. As she laid it out there, the heart of this woman, it's meant for more. She initially went out simply to provide food for the day and for her mother-in-law, and she received that and then some. But now introduced to the possibility of an even greater reality, a hope for a family, and enduring security, the windfall of wheat, the barrel of barley is an empty victory. At some level, that was observable to Naomi, and Ruth has hit her first crisis of faith. Things hadn't gone to plan. She had added things up quite differently. How many of us have been there? We thought life was going to be different than it was, and we trusted the Lord. We believed that He was setting things out this way, and the storybook is before us. And in our minds, we've read the story, we've seen what it's supposed to be, and we've bought into that with all of our heart. We believe that God, because He did this, that means He had to do this. And because He does that, then this is going to happen. And people have walked away going, "God, why didn't you do what you promised me?" And so often we just don't realize that God never promised what our fanciful interpretation of our future was going to be. How do we deal with that as a Christian? When you've faced crises of faith, when you've sat there and you've wondered where God was in the moment. Remember, Ruth doesn't have her own book. It'd be awesome if each one of us had our own book. We could just quickly flip to the next chapter and see how it goes. If we don't like that, we could rip out that chapter, write a new one, put it in. Listen now to the seasoned believer, and this is where it's all going. Listen now to the seasoned believer and find the wisdom of God's Holy Spirit to speak to us about how to handle disappointment as we walk with the Lord. Verse 18, "Then she said, 'Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out, for the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day.'" Ruth looks at her daughter-in-law. She's in a place where she can offer comfort. And a few months ago, this might have been a different story. Naomi may not have been in a place to even say anything. She might have just said, "I'm just bitter. Don't call me Naomi, call me bitter." Thankfully, she's over that. And here she can offer some comfort. And gratefully, the Lord has been working on her heart to heal her and bring her back to a place where she could do this. Naomi spells out 3 instructions for Ruth that are profoundly helpful to those that face disappointment in their walk with the Lord. It's right there in the text. First, she says, sit still. Sit still. Can you see Ruth pacing back and forth, trying to slow her breathing, but not successfully? As she panics a little bit more, thinking about, okay, as she kind of puts the idea together of like, what could he look like? What's he do? Who is this man? Where is he going to take me? Where does he live? As she paces back and forth and she stresses out, Naomi grabs her by the shoulders, by the arms, and says, sit still. Don't move. Stop freaking out. Our nervous movement triggers our anxious thoughts, which in turn fuels our potential panic. Silence and stillness begins the process of clear, faithful Christian thinking. Now, this word here isn't just a momentary lapse into silence. It's not just saying sit here and just be quiet and let your mind go anywhere it wants while you're sitting quietly. The word is related to the word abide. Abide in. Dwell in, sit down in the place that you have come to trust. In the case of Ruth, and in our case as well, sit down in the shadow, sit down in the protective covering of the Lord's wings. This is where you brought yourself. Now sit there. Sit down where you have come and abide in that place of protection. There may have been a change in plans, but listen, it wasn't a surprise to the Lord. In your life, you thought AB equals C, and when AB became X and Y, first of all, you're like, why? I don't like algebra. But here it is, it's all out in front of you. You don't know why it's happened this way, but it never was a surprise to God. He never looked at your situation and said, oh, look, whoops. I was busy over here with Neptune. I forgot all about you there. It was no surprise to the Lord. God was sovereignly protecting Ruth. Trust in Him. Abide in Him, especially when the circumstances surprise you. Now, one cannot listen to this verse without thinking of Psalm 46. Psalm 46, I'd encourage you to read it later on in your afternoon. But it speaks of all kinds of chaotic events. The world trembling and the world going into war and all kinds of crazy stuff. And he says at the end, one thing remains solid and stable. One truth never changes, no matter what's going on in the world around us. Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations, and I will be exalted in the earth. In that verse, the word be still means to let go and refrain. Put it down and don't pick it up again. Now, I don't know about you guys. All of you seem very spiritual. A couple of you seem very spiritual. There's somebody in here who's spiritual, I hope. I pray that that's the case. But how many of us, and don't raise your hand, this is time for confession, but how many of us we've worried about something? Lord, it's yours. And we lay it down, and then 2 seconds later, let me figure that out. We pick it up again. A little Rubik's Cube. Well, how do we think we're helping? Oh, we put it down for a reason. It's not like we got smarter to pick it back up. So refrain, hands up. Recognize, know that in the midst of chaotic change and difficulty, He is still who He has always been and will be doing what He has always been doing. His goal is not your comfort. His goal is not for you to be happy. His goal is to be glorified, exalted in your life and through your life. That never changes. Now, does that mean as Christians that we just sit down? Do we just do nothing? Well, no. We'll get to the action in a moment, but understand this. Before you do something, you have to do that. You have to sit down and recognize that your life is not in your control. And no matter how much you think you're the controller of your own destiny, you are not. And no matter what you think about the image of your life and the thing that you're creating for yourself, that is not bigger than what God wants to produce through you and in you. So I have to sit down and recognize who's God. and who's not. And when we do that, we're on the right road. But notice how long you're supposed to sit still. Look at what she says. Until you know how the matter will turn out. You and I, we attach ourselves to connected dots that make sense to our own control-addicted minds. If this happens, then this is going to take place. And if this happens, then that happens. Then I'll have to do this. It's like a mental game of chess, except we're playing with pieces that we don't even know are on the board, whether or not they're there. So we've connected all these dots. We've begun acting in accordance to what we think is going to happen. Ruth, Christian, let's wait to find out what does happen and respond. We don't make decisions based on what we think is going to take place. We wait for something to happen and then we respond. Otherwise, we're reacting. One is fear. When I just react to what might happen, to hypotheticals, to things that I hope and wish for, then I'm responding out of fear and control. When I look at what does happen and I move forward, I'm moving forward in faith. I'm responding. I'm not reacting. I'm prayerfully looking at something and going, okay, now I have the ability to do something, to respond, to pray and know what to pray about. At present, I would say that we hear in the words, sit still, the word refrain. Let it go, hands up. In the words, until you know, I consider the word respond. Now in our final portion, I hear the word remember. Remember. Look at what she says. This man Boaz, he's not going to rest until he has concluded this matter this day. Anyone remember what Boaz's name meant? Fleetness. This guy was fast to getting things done. He wasn't going to let anything happen without doing it quickly. That's why he was such a successful guy. He found a business deal that was right and boom, he was on it. He is not going to delay his business. What's she saying to him? Put together what you know about Boaz so far. What do you know about Boaz? What have you seen from day one in your interactions with him? Everything you've seen points to the fact that this guy is not going to let it go. He's not going to stop until it's finished, until he knows what's going to be done. He's going to go at it with all of his heart until it's completed, because you've seen the way he's acted. You know what kind of man this is. He will work until it is finished. I love that she uses that word. He's not just going to dabble around about it. You know, there's some guys, and nobody in here, they go to other churches, but there's some guys who start, things in their garage, and it's been sitting there and the wife comes and says, are you ever going to finish that? And he goes, well, I'm kind of finishing it now. I'm just visualizing, seeing how parts go and, whatever else. I think this goes here and whatever else. This guy's going to finish the job because that's what he always did. That's who he was. Now, I think it's best as we close out this chapter to remind you as Christians, if you belong to Jesus Christ here this morning, you need to refrain from exerting control, manipulating actions, or calculating your next move. Sit still. Hear the voice of the Lord. Listen to your Father. Trust Him and obey. How hard is it to obey when we're running and going after things, and to listen when we're just like with a chicken with our head cut off? I don't even know where that visual comes from, but it sure is fun to think about. But a chicken with my head cut off, just running around. And how hard is it for me to tune in to what God's saying? But if I'm sitting down with a Bible open in front of me and I'm praying and I'm asking Him, God, I don't know what to do, and then I just shut up and listen. How easy is it to trust Him and obey? When something becomes evident, when your next step is revealed, respond. Move forward in faith, knowing that this is for His glory and for your good. And remember, this just isn't anyone that you're trusting. You know this person. You know that this person is proven. His resources are sufficient. His intentions are good. And his track record is perfect. Ruth could trust in a man that was shaped by God. But we are trusting the God who took on the form of a man. Jesus, our kinsman redeemer, who went to a Roman cross to absorb in His body all that we deserved. Jesus Christ did not rest until He cried out, "It is finished, paid in full. Christ, if that's what he did for you in the past, to secure your salvation, to secure your eternity with him, if that's what he did in the past, and you know that he's good for the future, can't we stop and sit still and go, the present's pretty well taken care of because I'm in good hands. I can trust this one. I can believe him. I can rest. Remember his character in the midst of your crisis, and you'll stand strong. Let's pray.